All right, hello. My name is Irina, and I'm the founder of Ale. For those of you who don't know, we're a custom travel planning company. So what we do is we plan really amazing, extraordinary trips for people all around the world. And one of the places that we've been doing a lot of work in, and a lot more work kind of more recently, is a place called Croatia. So which is really cool because Croatia, I don't know if you remember this, but in the early 90s was the site of a lousy war. So it's pretty cool to see it kind of blossoming as a tourist destination. Really great place to go in the summer. I can't think of a better place that's more like quintessential European summer. So you've got an amazing coastline, islands all dotting the coastline. They really lucked out geographically. Super long coastline, thin, long country. So I'll be covering questions for about a half hour. Tune in as you can, listen later on. This video will live on our page, and also we'll post it onto YouTube so you can watch it whenever. Any questions that you have, just type away and let me know. I'll try to cover what I have time for. If you're watching later on and one of your questions wasn't answered, still comment down below and I'll make sure to get back to you. We collected quite a few questions leading up to this, so I will go through them, but like I said, interrupt anytime with any questions that you have that come up. So I'll start with one that is quite common. What's the best airport to fly into in Croatia? Croatia actually has quite a few pretty decent options as far as airports are concerned. So it really depends on what you want to do. One of the best places I think to start is to fly into Dubrovnik, which is the very southern part of the country. So it's cool because you can fly into Dubrovnik and then work your way back north. But there's also big airports that serve a huge number of passengers in Split, in Zadar, in Zagreb. You can also fly into Ljubljana in Slovenia and then drive into Croatia. So the options are pretty endless. It really depends on which part of Croatia you want to see, and I'll dive into that a little bit later. Alicia's asking, should I rent a car? Absolutely. If you know anything about me and just in general the kind of travels that we like to plan at Ale, with the exception of probably India, yeah, I'd say India, we really recommend renting a car nearly everywhere you go. Great way to see virtually any destination. So if you're comfortable with it, do it. Croatia is actually a really easy place to drive. They've done a great job with highways and making things accessible. Renting a car is super easy. I recommend Auto Europe. I'll link it below. And then you can basically island hop your way through the country, but having a car. So what's cool about the islands is that most of them are really close to the coast, and they're connected either by like huge long bridge roads, or you can take a really short, easily reservable, bookable ferry. So yeah, renting a car is the easiest way to island hop, unless you're a gazillionaire and you can just go on a private yacht. Of course, that is a wonderful option if that's available to you. So I'd say rent a car, and then because it makes the most sense, of course, to then start either at the very south or the very north, and then work your way from one to the other. Oh, cool. Tim is saying drove the whole country in a car, no problem. Awesome, Tim. Yeah, really good experiences in general. It's a easy place to drive. So I'm glad you had fun. Alicia's asking about ferries, and Tim just said ferries were easy, and I will second that. Ferries are very easy. If you're going in peak season, busy season, so like if you're there in August, definitely book a ferry in advance. I'll link below where you can do that. Really easy to do. You can pay online. You print off like a confirmation of purchase basically. The only thing is when you book a ferry online, it doesn't, you pick a time, but your spot on that specific time isn't guaranteed. So if you're traveling a really popular route, like between Split and Town, for example, it's good to give yourself some buffer time. It's not quite like a train where your seat is guaranteed and you just show up at the departure time and you get on. So plan to kind of get there like an hour in advance and get comfortable, maybe hang out where the ferries depart. There's usually like a place to eat or something. So just something to plan for. Also try not to take the last ferry making that crossing in the day, because worst comes to worst, you might not be able to make that crossing. So just something to plan ahead for. We've got a question: how big are these islands and how many days do you recommend for a trip to Croatia? Islands range in all sizes. If you look at a map, they're kind of dotting the coast. Basically, for a good trip to Croatia, to really get a sense of the country, I recommend a week. You can spend all summer there if you like. But yeah, basically a week. I would make your way through, like working your way south or north. Definitely if you're a hiker, or I mean, if anybody has heard anything about Croatia, it's most often the islands and the waterfalls, incredible waterfalls, just a little inland from Zadar, like an hour and a half, the Plitvice Lakes National Park. Great day hiking, lots of different kinds of trails, so you can basically, you get there and you can pick based on what you're in the mood for. I really like the longest option that they have. It's 7 hours and you get to see the lower lakes and the upper lakes and kind of leave the rest of the tours, but you can pick super short ones as well. It doesn't have to be like an intense hiking trip. So yeah, a week, work your way either south or north. Istria is a really nice part of Croatia. If you look at a map, it's like the northern peninsula part that kind of juts out. And what's great about Istria is it's being dubbed the new up-and-coming Tuscany, because it actually, Istria was controlled by Italy for a long time. So it does have a very Italian feel. They even have their own Roman ruins, which are some of the best, in the best condition in the world. So Istria is great for food because of the Italian influence, and they've got kind of the perfect setup for that. So if you're a big foodie, then I recommend Istria. And actually, I had a question submitted about food by a certain Corey Brodsky, who's typically our food questioner. And Corey just asks, food question, mark, and exclamation point. Yes, there is food in Croatia. I don't want to offend anybody Croatian. My personal opinion is that Croatian food isn't the gem of European food or European cuisines. So I think overall, Italian food, Portuguese food, Spanish food, there's kind of more variety and flavor. However, because of Croatia's coastline, you've got access to really, really fresh seafood. It's usually really affordable, and kind of what's happening all over the world is that you're getting in Croatia as well this burgeoning food scene of local chefs trying to do something interesting and unique. The city Split, so if you're going to Hvar, Split is just inland, has a very, very active food and nightlife scene, and they've got like an olive oil bar and really up and coming interesting places to eat. And like I mentioned, Istria. So while I wouldn't necessarily say you should go to Croatia for the food, still great food to be had. It just won't like blow your mind, I guess I would say. But I probably offended somebody Croatian right now. I'm really sorry about that. Okay, I've got a question from Ellie Odell from Costa Rica. Ellie asks, is Croatia Schengen? For those of you who don't know, Schengen is the visa-free area of travel where people can travel within the European Union. Croatia is not. So Croatia is a member of the European Union, not of the Schengen zone. It means that if you are flying in from somewhere else in Europe, or driving, either from Hungary, from Slovenia, you will cross a border. So you will feel a border there. It's not a very intense border. If you're an American citizen, you don't need a visa, but it does apply to renting a car. So if you're picking up a rental car in Croatia and then driving into the European Union, make sure to check your car rental contract, because sometimes they have like additional charges that you pay for entering a different country. Just something to keep in mind. So it is not Schengen. They are working on it, and I think right now they're saying that by 2018 they will be, but things kind of move often and much with the Schengen requirements and getting in. So stay tuned for that. Favorite things to see and do in Dubrovnik from Lauren Park in Toronto. So Dubrovnik, you've seen thousands of pictures of it for sure. Also, it's kind of quintessentially Mediterranean, beautiful, beautiful place. So it's a great place to start. I would stay, there's a peninsula nearby called Lapad Peninsula. It's a great place to stay because Old Town is really crowded and kind of can feel like a tourist ghetto sometimes. It's lovely, but I think Lapad Peninsula is nicer. It's like a 30-minute beautiful walk into Old Town, or you can take a super short taxi. Buses also run often. And what's cool about the Lapad Peninsula is lots of great beaches. So all around the peninsula there are great beaches. And then it's also a place where local people live. So you can kind of also get a taste of local life, which is sometimes hard to do in in Croatia in the summer months, just because it gets so crowded with tourists. Also in Dubrovnik, I really recommend, if you can swing it and afford it, doing a private boat. So you can go on really big tourist boats that like cram everybody in, and I'm just not a fan. For about 300 or 400 euros, you can have like your own personal speedboat, or even a sailboat if you want, which, if you're splitting it with 4 or 6 people, that can be right around the same price as going the route of a big group. So much better experience. Really, really cool islands just off the coast of Dubrovnik. Beautiful coves that you can swim in, really unique experience. And like I said, if it's a private boat that you're on, it's just a completely different experience. You can have a picnic on one of the tiny islands as well. It's awesome. And then of course, set aside a day for Old Town. Great sights, beautiful. There's a restaurant that I really like to recommend. It's literally a hole in the wall, but you go through. It's along the wall, the retaining wall of the city, and it's you walk through the wall, so you're like sitting on the outskirts of the city in this like rock bar, overlooking the sea and everything. It's really incredible. A great place to have a drink and kind of gear up for dinner. There's also a cable car you can take to the top to the top of the Old Town, like the hill overlooking it, for really cool views. So another fun thing to do. Let's see, what else do we have here? Okay. A question we had from Rihanna Ledvos from Oslo. My friend and I are heading to Croatia in the end of May, and we need your help deciding where to go. We fly into Dubrovnik and want to head to Plitvice National Park, but we're unsure where else to go. Where would you recommend, and how long we spend in each place? We want to spend about 10 nights there. 10 nights is a really awesome amount of time. You'll get a really wonderful taste of the whole country. So again, start either at the north or in the south. I'm a big fan of starting south just because it makes sense airport-wise too. So I'd fly into Dubrovnik, spend 2-3 days in Dubrovnik, pick up a rental car, drive north to Hvar. Hvar Island, if you do a little Googling, you'll see that it's probably one of the more famous Croatian islands. I wouldn't let that put you off though if you're looking for something less touristy and less off the beaten path, because Hvar is actually a very big island. So most tourists base themselves in Hvar city and just hang out there. And while that's great, and I would still recommend you spend the night in Hvar city because there's awesome places to eat, places to go out for a drink at night. It's kind of where the hubbub of life is. Hvar is actually a pretty big island, so you can have your rental car, right? Because you listened to me and you rented a car. And you can stop all through the island, visit incredible wineries, really amazing wine scene in Hvar, coves beautiful for swimming on both sides, so you can just basically zigzag from one side of the island to the other. It's thin and long, so I'm talking about zigging on the thin side. So zigzag back and forth, incredible swimming locations that really most people don't really get to. So really recommend that. And then if you go at a certain point in the summer, there's also incredible lavender fields that are usually blooming in Hvar. That's awesome. Again, Hvar, off the coast of Hvar is where those awesome, you've definitely seen pictures of this, those like bright green and bright blue caves that are in the water. So you take a boat out there for the day. Another place where you can take a group tour, you can do a private boat tour. Obviously the private option is more expensive, but if you've got a bigger group, it financially is basically a wash. Also really cool island, tiny islands just off the coast of Hvar that boat taxis take you out to for like $15, not even that. So from Hvar, then take the ferry to Split, a super short ferry ride. Spend a night in Split. Split is a lively, awesome, young town. Then keep driving to Zadar. From Zadar, you can do Plitvice Lakes National Park, those incredible waterfalls. You can also check out another island that's really off the beaten path called Dugi Otok, and I'll link the post below where I talk about that island. I mean, people don't really get there, so it's kind of a hidden paradise. It's awesome, and it's really close to Zadar. From there, if you want to fly out of Zadar, you can. You can drive a little further inland to Zagreb, which is the capital. It used to get a bad rap as not being a terribly interesting place, but now it's kind of more of a thriving European town. They're doing a really nice job of making it an interesting place to be. Otherwise, from Zadar, continue north to Opatija, spend a night there, and Opatija makes for a great base for you to explore the Istria Peninsula, which is food land, as I mentioned. Then, if you want to keep going, I would also spend a night spend a day or drive into Slovenia. So Slovenia is teeny tiny, really incredible hikes there, whitewater rafting, and also Slovenia's food scene is actually getting a lot of press these days. So a lot of good food to be had there also. So 10 days, that's how I would split it up. Of course, depending on if you want to spend more time beach lounging or hiking or whatever, adjust as needed. Best form of transportation in Croatia, from Niara Paseli, Brazil. I just really would do the rental car and the ferries. You can do buses. I don't think it's worth the money. I mean, if you're traveling alone, sure, but trains aren't really a viable option. So yeah, I would go the route of renting a car and ferries for sure. This is probably gonna get old of me. I should be like a car rental rep or so, I don't know. That's kind of a big ethos of mine. Okay, and then let's see, what else did we have? We covered airport, island hopping, favorite things to see in Dubrovnik. That's all I have. Does anybody listening have any other questions? It looks like we kind of covered everything. So basically, I guess one more thing that I'll talk about that nobody touched on, but I think it's a question that commonly comes up, is when is the best time of year to visit Croatia? So Croatia is Though they have a beautiful coastline, it is more northern Europe than, say, Greece or even a Spain. So the weather is a lot more continental European weather than kind of the southern portions of Europe. So basically that means summer. Summer is the peak travel month. Summer is the time to travel. If you can swing it and you don't have kids in school or something, September is awesome because it's still warm. It's still, things are still kind of open. If you go in October, you could get really good weather because we're at the whim of changing weather. But things kind of start winding down as far as tourist services. So that makes travel in months like October and definitely November is a no. May should be warm enough, late May, June for sure. If you're looking at summer travel, I would do my best to avoid August travel because that's the ultimate peak. All of Europe goes on vacation. So though you can get off the beaten path, you'll just be paying a premium for nearly everything. Everything from renting a car to your Airbnb or in hotels and whatever. So just be prepared for that, and obviously plan in advance, especially if you'll be taking ferries, book in advance, show up to the ferry early, things like that. So thank you for joining in. That's all I have today on Croatia. Like I said, everything that I talked about, I'll link below so you can find the information and take it from there as you plan. If, as you are planning your trip to Croatia or anywhere else, you need any help or insight, we actually, aside from planning soup to nuts trips, we also offer a travel consulting service called Ask LA, where you speak to either me or Polly, which is another one of our travel planners, based on, because there's certain destinations that like she specializes in and I specialize in. So you speak to one of us for an hour, ask us any question that comes up. We know these places inside and out because we've spent a lot of time there, A, and B, planned a lot of trips there. So we know it from the standpoint of both, like, what's it like to have boots on the ground there and actually be visiting there, but also the planning standpoint of this is the best car rental company to go with because the other one has really bad customer service, or stay in this part of town, not that part of town, things like that. So that's all I have today. I hope all of you have a great rest of the day and a great rest of the week, and make it out to Croatia at some point. It's lovely. Bye. Thanks.